Hi, guys. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, thank you.
So we are here with Sean and Killian Duclay, correct?
Mhm. Correct.
And your organization, Sail Ahead, is what we're here to talk about today. You guys have started this organization. I really can't wait to get into all this and start asking you questions and share this story, because what you do, you take veterans out. I went on, I used my nifty research skills. Went on your website. Your mission is healing wounded veterans through sailing in all weather and all seasons. But you have also now expanded that mission to include spreading PTSD and suicide awareness in our veteran community. Correct?
Yeah, correct.
So let me just go to the question that I'm burning to ask. You all kind of look like you could be my sons. So how old are you?
I'm Sean. I'm 18, and I graduated high school a couple months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and my name is Kilian, and I'm 20 years old, and I'm gonna be a junior in college now. So.
Wow. So what are you going to college for?
I'm double majoring in applied mathematics and atmospheric and ocean science.
Why not? Because one major would be too boring. What about you, Sean? What are your plans for the fall?
I'm going to go to a community college to stay close so I can continue Sail Ahead, and I'm going to study history there.
Love it. Love it. So what I have to ask, what inspired you to start this organization? I mean, you don't just say, hey, when they get up, say, I'm going to start this crazy organization. We're going to use really expensive outlets to help our veterans. I mean,
yeah. So
how did this happen?
So true enough, on Long Island, access to the water is not cheap.
Yeah.
But luckily enough, our parents are sailors. They love sailing, so they taught us to sail from a young age. And we started sailing in the winter around 2013, and we wanted to invite.
You started sailing in the winter?
Yeah.
That's a great time to start.
We've been sailing all our lives, really, and for us here in New York, the sailing season is too short because in the winter it's cold. It's snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we only really have 2 months to sail it, in the summer. So I mean, we've been sailing all our lives, but we don't stop when fall comes around. We keep sailing even through the winter.
And it's a healthy addiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you think so. But I like the phrase. I'm writing that down. We'll use it.
Sailing in the winter is really attractive to us. I mean, we're adrenaline junkies, so we search that. I mean, the adrenaline rush and the excitement of sailing in the winter. Like you said, it's pretty crazy to think about it. And that's why we don't think about it too much. But when you're sailing and it's snowing, and then to get when the beach becomes a snowy beach, it's very surreal. But the reason why we sail in the winter is because of the extremity, the adrenaline rush, and for us, sailing is therapeutic. I always say that when I'm sailing, I never remember that math test that I just flunked. So that was the basis. That's how we started with the idea of bringing veterans involved, because we learned that at least 22 veterans at the time commit suicide daily in the United States, and in our county, Suffolk County alone, we have 79,000 veterans. Wow. So obviously not all of them need help, but there is a vast number of veterans in our county. And so we figured, we'd reach out to this community. And right from the first sail, I mean, Sean was with a Vietnam Navy veteran, and it was it was very impactful, and we knew immediately that sailing was therapeutic.
Yeah, the first veteran we took sailing, as Kilian said, was Vietnam War era. And he told us he was 100% handicapped because of his PTSD. And he was going to therapy for 20 years for his PTSD. Wow. So, we started in the winter, as Kilian said, but we started on Hobie Cat 16s, which means they're 16-foot boats. And they're kind of small, especially in the winter, because you want to be as far from the water as possible, which, yeah. So and
all right, go ahead.
Like inside the house.
Yeah. So we went out. It was cold and uncomfortable. So we were concerned that this might not have been a great idea to take a 70-year-old man sailing on a 16-foot boat in the snow. But when we got back on the beach, he came up to us and he gave us a hug, and then he started to cry, and we joined him, but we didn't know why. But we were crying with him, and then he told us that was the best therapy he's ever had.
Wow. Are you in touch with him today?
Yeah.
Yeah. He travels all over the place, but ever since that weekend, he's come to us every weekend since. And then just recently, he's been traveling around the world, so he's not with us, but he's he stayed with us for a while.
He was living in Huntington for I think 20 years, and then we started going sailing, and I think it turned his life around because now he's going all over the place.
That is amazing. So you took this one veteran out, and from there you realized the impact that made on his life, and you said, "Hey, I think we're onto something. Let's do this."
We more or less took sailing for granted until then, because we grew up around sailing, and we didn't realize just how much of an impact it really could have on someone who needs it. Like you said, yeah. Yep.
So then, I mean, it couldn't have all just fallen into place. You had to put a lot of work into this to make this organization happen. Tell us about that startup. So from the day that you took that first veteran out to today, where you have events. Let's take a veteran sailing events. Now I see you just did one out in Washington too, right? So you're not even just in New York. You've really expanded in just this short period of time. How did that happen from the first sail to starting let's start with there. So how did you go from that first sail to actually starting that organization?
So at that point, we wanted to help more. And on one 16-foot boat, that was not enough. So we started collecting the crappier boats that people just wanted to give away. And we took those, we did a little work on them, and then that's how we started our fleet. And so we went 2-3 boats at a time. And then summer came around, and that's big boat season. So we started contacting other veterans organizations like the American Legion, New York State Marine Corps, New York State Trooper Marine Corps Association, and associations like that. And they sent us veterans, and we started sailing. And for the first 2 years, it wasn't anything very big because, we were fairly young. I was 14, so I had no idea where to go from there. But then...
So I got to stop right there. So these veterans come on down and they say, "Hey, we're going to get on a boat." They get on a boat with you too?
Yeah, believe it or not, yeah.
So they've never met you before. There are these men and women coming out from nowhere. They're going to get on the boat, probably in some monsoon or tropical storm or in the winter, or maybe there's sharks around or whatever, if you guys arrange it the way you seem to like it, right? And they get on the boat like with these kids. You were kids at then. And so you have something about you that these people just trust. You clearly know your way around a boat, you know your way around the water, and you have this confidence that these people are willing to just put all of their faith in you. I mean, that's a pretty overwhelming responsibility you have right there. I mean, I have boys. When they're 14, they're not thinking, "Man, I love you, boys," but they weren't like thinking necessarily, "Hey, let's take on this massive, massive responsibility."
Well, I mean,
so how did you do that? How did you gain their confidence or their trust, or did you not even think about it? You just did it.
At the time we weren't thinking bigger picture at all. We had no idea that this could really pick up. And at first we had a lot of people, of course, take into consideration that we looked like 12-year-olds, and we weren't far from being 12. But the only way I can think about it now, from my perspective now, is that these veterans who came to us who needed help, I mean, they weren't much older than us when they were even deployed, 18, 19 years old. Now I'm 20 years old. Sean is 18 now. So when they see kids like us seeking this adrenaline rush and, given what they had in the military, their camaraderie, someone constantly covering their six, people in the military are trained to do things at such extremities, and their skills are heightened to a level like no one else, on the earth. So when we put veterans who need help in these situations, it's like, a lot of people are scared, like, oh, you don't want to push them too much, but they're used to that, and so they're really attracted to what we do. And at first, granted, first of all, for something to be therapeutic, it has to be recurring. So each veteran we took out sailing, at first we didn't have 20 veterans who we take sailing, but more like 5 or 6, but they'd come every weekend. And that was the goal, is for sailing to heal versus just, we didn't want water. We didn't want, like, all right, by the end of this month, we'll take 100 veterans sailing. It's like more like we need to help 100 veterans through a longer period of time. And I mean, honestly, from the beginning, we had nothing, no goals ahead of us set. So one thing led to another. We met new people. We got in touch with more sailors, so they joined the Sail Ahead team, so to speak. And within 3 or 4 years, we're responsible for 1,000 veteran outings to the water. And part of how we do that is also, we only have so many boats, and Sean and I are only 2 sailors. So what we try and do, like with the event in Washington, or the event we're having in a week, Let's Take a Veteran Sailing event, is we kind of act like brokers, where we connect local veterans with local sailors. So
awesome.
On Long Island, there are a lot of sailboats that aren't being used, and we just try to connect the veterans with sailors, and they take it off on their own, kind of thing.
Yeah, because like Kilian said before, there are 79,000 veterans in Suffolk County, and a 16-foot boat isn't exactly big enough.
Big enough. Nope, that would be a little bit crowded there. So now that's how it goes. So you put the word out, and you have volunteers from the community come forward and say, we will take this veteran sailing. How do you work that out with all the, the annoying like legalities and red tape? Do you have issues with that? I mean, do these people have to sign off? Have you run into trouble, or not trouble, but headaches with all of that?
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, a couple skippers, sailors. So a skipper is a sailor in charge.
Word? Okay.
Yeah, a skipper. Yeah, is someone in charge of a sailboat, and or drives a sailboat, and so some people have come to us, and then they've had some concern, and then they're really, some people, they really go as far as to say, oh, what happens when a veteran has an episode, or they go AWOL or whatever. Yeah. And to that, we always just respond, in the end, all these veterans that we're helping, all these people we're helping are humans. They all have a heart. They were all like us at one point. So they're in a bad place right now, but it doesn't mean, to treat them like monsters. And then, so we had some people who just questioned about, insurance and all that. But before every event, so obviously when we first started, we had none of that. But at every event, we have liability waivers that are signed. And for the skipper side, for the sailors, they have to sign a code of conduct, making sure that they don't ask, dumb questions like, how many people did you kill? Or,
okay.
No.
Because it's something, if a veteran has PTSD and they come sailing with us, they're seeking therapy. So in other words, they're seeking refuge from something. And that something is safe to assume it most likely has to do with their military career. So we don't want to bring that up if they're trying to escape from it.
Sure.
Now, if they bring it up, we encourage them to continue to talk about it, but we don't ask them if they killed anybody, because that may not be what they want to talk about while they're sailing.
Yeah, and by the way, we are not medical experts at all, and we don't claim to be. It's just that we kind of go at it as the common sense approach, and that might sound naive coming from a 20-year-old, but if there's this guy who served your country, served for you, and he's come back home and he's left for dead, so to speak, then you're going to help them out whether they have problems or not. And going back to the liability issue, a lot of people, they just don't know how to feel about it. And when they see 2 teenagers, I guess, at the front here, they kind of stay quiet on the issue. I mean, when it comes to that. So
We're like, whoa.
yeah, well,
Yeah. So we did write up a like Kilian said, a waiver.
Yeah.
And we had a friend of ours who's a lawyer check it out, and he said it's good. So, but we only did that like a couple of years ago. Our first big event, when we first started to expand from our little outings of 5 vets, is we got a response back from the Northport VA after 2 years of trying, and they said, "All right, let's have an event." So we had we invited the local sailing school to volunteer some boats, and we also had another sailing school, and we had 4 boats and a little powerboat, just in case someone gets hurt, we could take them back to land. And it was such a huge success. It's like nothing we've had before. It was a small fleet of 4 boats, but they were the big boats. And it was with the VA, so it was an official thing, and we felt very much like professionals at that point. So that, I think, was another turning point, because after that, we started realizing the potential of big events, not necessarily in a healing aspect, but in a way to spread PTSD and suicide awareness, and also to spread awareness for Sail Ahead. Because for many of the people at the VA, from that first outing, they're still with us today, 2 years later, and they come regularly once a week. So we learned that although there are so many people who need help, it's more likely that the people that need help are the ones kind of staying in their homes, not reaching out. So what's important is that at these events, we really try to spread the word about who we are, so that people who need help can realize that there is a way for them to find help. And like I say, it's a group therapy session that's forced, because you can't very well leave the room because there's water all around you. So you're forced to stay in that group therapy session. And because you have to work as a team to get the boat to move, you're forced to interact with the people. Otherwise, you just float and drift away. So it's like it's a very effective way to get people talking.
yeah,
And these guys, they don't necessarily know each other before they get on that boat that day.
Not necessarily, no. Usually, if they all come from the VA, then they do know each other beforehand. But at the bigger events, like the one we're having in a week, we're going to have 180 plus participants. So that means veterans plus their spouses or children. And they come from, we're going to have 30 of them are homeless, coming from a shelter in Manhattan. We have some from the Green Lawn American Legion, some from the Northport VA. So some of them know each other, but by the end of the event, they all know each other.
So how did you arrange this event that's coming up? How did that come to happen?
The first thing I can remember is really like why we wanted to have it in the first place. We wanted something where we can kind of ground Sail Ahead, and get our message across. We wanted to really connect veterans with sailors and raise PTSD and veteran suicide awareness. So we talked with, through a friend we met, we got in touch with some yacht club members at Centerport Yacht Club, and the idea just spread, and it went straight up to the Commodore, the Vice Commodore, and they loved our idea to have just an event to sail with veterans, and that's how it just became to and from there.
How many boats will be there at this event? To have 180 people, how many boats do you need?
We're probably our goal is 50. We think it's going to go a little bit over 50 boats, but 50 is the goal.
So when they get there that day, are they pre-assigned a boat, or is it we'll take 10 people here, we take 6 people there?
No. Everything that's where the work on us. Like we're not doing much sailing anymore.
That's how it goes, right?
But so yeah, we do as much as we can beforehand. So yeah, we get all the veterans' names, their contacts, all the skipper's name, all the boats, and we do that beforehand.
Yeah, we ask a skipper how many people he thinks he can fit on his boat, And then he says 3, for example, and we look at the veterans roster and we see a father with 2 of his kids, so we put him on that boat, and we try and connect the dots, because we try and we make our events, like Killian said, so that we can try and connect the sailing community with the veterans community, because again, we can't take everyone sailing, but we don't necessarily want to. We just want people who need help to get the help that they need. So for example, we once had a member who was a Vietnam vet connect with a very young Marine vet. So 2 completely different generations, one from the sailing community, one from the veterans community. And then they connected and they just kept going sailing after that.
Oh, that's great.
That's exactly what we want.
Yeah, actually, that gentleman from the Vietnam era, he's a double Purple Heart recipient. And the Marine, he was a captain in the Marines, and he did a tour in Iraq and Afghanistan, and 2 tours in Afghanistan. And yeah, I mean, they talk even to this day, and that's all we look for. That's all we want. So that was a success. Yeah.
I would tell you, the Vietnam veterans, I have such a soft spot for them. They have time and again shown themselves to just be these extraordinary. I mean, they are badass people, really. They are just. And they just come forward, and if there was a community that ever was maybe not treated well by the country and had the right to be bitter, it's them. And how they continue to come forward. This one that you were just talking about is another example. So every time I hear those stories, I get a little happy, because I know so many personally, and I've had so many of them personally impact my life, my children's lives, and now I get to hear their stories. I love hearing the stories of the Vietnam veterans. You could probably sit down with all these people that come and just do nothing but listen to their stories and just be blown away by them.
That's the biggest take back that we get, is that, you know, we take a lot of people sailing, and when they open up, that it means the world for us. I mean, that's why we do it, you know, and I mean, partly why. I mean, you know, it's one of the benefits. It's hearing their stories.
So you had mentioned that you 2 don't get to do much sailing more. Are you looking for volunteers maybe to take over some of the administrative work so that you 2 can get back out on the water, or is this just the way it's going to be for now?
I have no idea. we could definitely have help. Yeah, volunteers.
Is it just you 2 running all of this?
So we started out Sail Ahead, but pretty early on, our whole family got involved. Even our youngest sister. She takes all the notes at the meetings, nice and quietly in the corner. And she
put your sister in the corner.
She prefers the corner.
Yeah, right.
But
how old is she?
She is now
she's going to be 14 soon.
Yeah.
So she was our age when we started.
Great.
Yeah. And then my other sister, she's she's going to be 16 soon. And she is the official photographer, I guess, of Sail Ahead. And
wow, I've seen those pictures. She takes some really great pictures.
So
for her.
Yeah, so we started, you know, on the snowy beaches in Oyster Bay in 2013, and Sail Ahead kind of picked up. But when we really, for me, the turning point for Sail Ahead is when we were joined by our mates, and I don't know if you read about them online. But our mates are 219 veterans and active duty members, most of whom have taken their lives, you know, due to PTSD, depression, or they just couldn't readapt to civilian life. And what we learned by carrying our mates is, well, first of all, they come with us wherever we go, wherever we sail. They're on board with us, and we treat them like humans. At first, you know, when we got our mates, they were just names on a tag. And then we would get in touch with family members, and we realized, like, it hit us hard that, and you know more than us, that when someone's sent abroad or someone's in the military, in the service, they sacrifice so much, but so do their family members and their close friends, right? So because of that, we've Sail Ahead has become more than just take veterans sailing on the water, but also it involves the family members of veterans. And so we've been in touch with the family members of our mates, and we've dedicated a whole page on our website to write about their loved ones who have passed, who took their lives. And the event that we just had in Washington was to honor Army Specialist Ryan James Day. His name tag's ready. He was stationed in Tacoma in Washington at Fort Lewis, and he was part of 2nd Ranger Battalion. And he had a very particular case of PTSD, so to speak, because he didn't have your typical PTSD. He just, as his dad tells us, he was the Army trained him to be on, so to speak. Like, they train you at such an extreme level of heightness, and there's no off switch. So he had all this adrenaline. He did 2 tours in Afghanistan, and when you come back home, for a lot of people,
go for it.
It's a lull, and so he wanted that adrenaline rush. In fact, his body would give him adrenaline even when nothing was happening. So of course, one day, he played Russian roulette and he lost. And so that's one case that's very particular. And he died when he was 21 years old in 2014.
So did I see that his father came out to an event? Was that?
Yeah. So his family lives in Colorado. And we decided to dedicate this year to Ryan and his family.
Oh.
So Ryan's mom, his dad, and his 2 little brothers came out. Well, little. Now they're 20 and 14. Mm-hmm. But they flew from Colorado over to Tacoma, Washington to be with us and participate in the event. It was a huge success. We had 9 sailboats, 1 powerboat. And if you've ever been to Washington, Mount Rainier. It's a beautiful. It's a beautiful volcano that looks like a mountain with snow on it, and it made the whole the amount of healing that took place on those boats was magic enough, but the mountain just made it surreal.
Yeah, and we were also joined by another mate of ours.
Yep.
Tanner Volkers, who was in the Air Force, and his family's from Idaho, and they drove over to Tacoma, Washington for the event. And it was just to have 2 families there of our mates, it wasn't, of our mates. And that's when Sailorhead became national. We started contacting these families all over the country, Louisiana, Missouri, Oregon, Idaho, Washington. And at our event next week, we're going to have 6 families now of our mates.
Wow, that's amazing.
So we actually raised enough money to fly them all over from where they are, free of charge to them. So they'll all be flying over, and as opposed to renting out a hotel room, we thought that what better way to show that the community's behind them than to ask our neighbors and local members of the community if they could house them for a couple of nights.
Oh my goodness.
So right now we're working on getting the community to house them, because I feel like it's a bit more powerful if you come all the way from Louisiana to stay in someone's house than in a lonely hotel room. And that's the idea. We're all trying to stay close together so that we can have a barbecue like the night before the event, and then we can all go together. And that's the idea.
That's amazing. So do you know the unintended side effect is you're also breaking down some stereotypes about New Yorkers, because everybody thinks we're so obnoxious, right? I mean,
yeah.
So thank you on behalf of being a New Yorker. I thank you very much for representing us well and nicely.
Someone told me.
I have to ask now. Do you two have any interest in joining the military? I mean, you're so invested in it. And this is not a good or bad. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious because you seem to understand the military and what they go through. So have you ever thought about it? Considered it?
We're asked that question kind of often.
I know. So I could see on your faces. Oh, here it is. That's the question. I was already speaking. I couldn't stop.
That's fine. Yeah, wait, sorry. Some people say, so when you join the Marines? And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Feel bad. I don't want to set you up as if, if you don't join, there's something wrong with it. But it's just curious. I mean, clearly you should such a...
So,
wrong.
There are proportionally, there's a very small amount of Americans that actually go to the military,
Right.
and so they have a very hard time when they come back to civilian life relating to people because no one really understands.
Right.
That's what makes it so hard for the family of our mates is that when one of our mates takes their life at home, no one knows why, and sometimes the family members. It's very hard to lose a loved one, and even that is hard to relate to. But it's just because they're in the military makes it almost impossible to relate to someone. So what we do actually is with our mates, we set up this system where the families of our mates can actually get in touch with each other so that if they're ever having a down day, they could pick up the phone and call someone who knows exactly what they've been through and what they're going through, and they can help each other out.
But they're amazing. You are aware of that, right?
Thank you.
Seriously, the amount of ways that you are impacting these families and the community and what you're doing, it's not normal. It's awesome, but it's not, just take a second and give yourselves a little pat on the back because it is really, really awesome. As I'm a military family. I lost my husband in Iraq. So personally, I feel a great appreciation for people who even take a moment to acknowledge or support our families, let alone people who take it to the level you do. Professionally, I work with veterans every day, and I am involved in organizations. I know hundreds and hundreds of military families, and I need to just take a minute here to let you all know the impact that you leave on lives like mine. I haven't participated in your program, but I know what it's like to have people reach in and impact your life in the way that you guys are impacting lives. You're actually helping people through some very, very difficult times, and you're leaving an impression on them that's going to stay with them for their entire lives. What you are doing is going to trickle down into so many different lives and families. So I want you all to just be a little extra proud of that sometimes and understand that it's okay to acknowledge it sometimes. Okay.
There's too much work though. You can't.
It's great. It's very warming. We look forward to following you all and sharing your stories and your events. One day maybe we'll make it down there to see you in person. Did I hear something about goats? Who was taunting me with some goats or something? Farm animals, right? Was that you? That was you, right?
Yeah. I just want to add that back to the question, if we ever thought of the military.
Yeah.
I've definitely thought of joining, but after Sail Ahead, I continue to think it is nice to be part of a team and especially serve your country like this. But Sean and I, the way we see it is we're already at the front lines, except our battlefield's at home. So we're an apolitical organization, a-religious, we don't talk about that. But when we send people and kids, especially, abroad to fight for us and stand up for what we believe in, and they come home and they're literally left for dead, that in itself is a war front. And so we consider ourselves to be at the front lines at home. And it's arguably a front that is far deadlier than the war in the Middle East because the VA said that at least 22 veterans commit suicide daily in the United States. That's 8,000 a year. In 1 year, you have more casualties at home than 15 years of fighting in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So there's a serious, serious issue in this country right now that we feel is not sufficiently addressed. So we go where we feel we're most needed, I guess.
So I'm glad you said that because that is a very important point. And we have, even just in our short time since we've launched American Snippets, we've had this great opportunity to speak to people who have the similar goals as you. But now we've talked to somebody who works at a gym. He's an NFL athlete who has this gym for players, David Vapor, and he works with civilians and veterans in his gym to bring them together and do the same thing, but through different venues. We work with Micah Fink. We talked to Micah Fink. He has Heroes and Horses in Montana. He takes veterans out with wild Mustangs that he's gentled and takes these out. It's hashtag not a vacation. now we've got you guys out there on the ocean doing these things. So I think it would be wonderful maybe if at some point, maybe our government would pay attention to all these different ways that you can help our veterans and the responsibility we have towards them, and look at 3 people that are doing, or 3 sets of people who are doing this all over the country now, ping, ping, ping. And what a great example that you all could be for the government. If the government came calling one day and said, hey, Duclay family, would you be interested in coming to meet with us to discuss ways that we could help our veterans? You'd be there, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll send this link up to our representatives and all that, because it is just so inspiring. And I'm so happy to hear that you are there to take care of these families and these veterans when they come back. It's such a big gap that's missing. And I think, I know the veterans are super grateful to you too as well. What are your plans for Sail Ahead, say 5 years from now? If you were to look down the road, 5 years.
As of right now, we have 6 teams, 6 core programs. Like we don't just take veteran sailing every weekend. We have events, we have different training teams, programs, and not all of them even involve sailing, because we know that some people just don't like sailing. So we have a safety team, a nursing team. Our racing team is a hot one because our racing team is run by a 13-year Special Forces, an SF guy, a Green Beret, and racing gives military men and women the same things that they had when they were, abroad. In the future, we kind of just hope to expand on all our teams so that we can train more veterans to sail, so that they in turn can sail with other veterans. We always say that, we're boys, we're civilians. We can only connect so well with a Vietnam veteran guy or someone who was in Afghanistan, Marine. So to train other Marines, let's say, to sail with fellow Marines, that'd be huge. And their connections that they can make would be immensely more impactful than what we can do. So for me, at least, the way I see it is, we're already nationwide this year. If we can hit more families and get in touch and contact and create a bigger community among veterans and family members and the sailing community, then that'd be a success for me.
Yeah, we have different goals for different teams and for Sail Ahead as a whole. For example, for the racing team, we plan in 2 years to be able to do the Bermuda race. So that starts at Stamford.
No, it's from Newport, Rhode Island, and you just sail to Bermuda, and then.
So that's one of our goals. We also plan, like Ken said, to just keep on growing. We receive phone calls from people in Boston, LA, that they want to start Sail Ahead chapter over there. And we're not ready this year, but maybe next year or the year after, we might want to start a yearly event, and just to get our foot there, just to get a beachhead, and then work on and get more. But our growth is very slow, and that's okay. That's how we want it, because we want to maintain what we believe to be the high quality experience that these veterans are having with us. Because I think if you mass produce anything, you kind of deteriorate the quality a little bit. So in 5 years, I think we both still see us doing Sail Ahead, but we don't want to grow too fast, because we don't want to let any veterans down. Because this job, even though I'm not being paid for it, this job is I don't want to say more important than my high school friends who are delivering pizza, but it's a bit more important than delivering pizza. Because if I let someone down, it could very well mean that person is going to take their life.
Yeah. So
if my friend if he messes up, someone gets a cold pizza. So it's
yeah, and we said that within 3 years' time we took 1,000 veterans to the water, and it sounds cool and all, it's a big number, but what we really care about is how many lives we've saved with our sailing and healing activities. That's what means the most to us.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal what you all do. If somebody wanted to find out how they could help you or get involved or maybe refer a veteran, where can they go?
Our website, www.sailahead.org.
We have a Facebook page.
We have a Facebook page as well. And you can tell them to donate. And donate doesn't mean only money. Donate means, money is definitely appreciated, but donate also means boats, because in order to take people sailing, you kind of need a sailboat. And then there's also time. So you can donate your time as a volunteer. If you have a unique set of skills, like if you're a doctor, you can train some of our vets to be CPR certified. If you're a sailor, you can maybe come out, teach some of our veterans a little bit. So you can donate, but there are many different ways to donate. You can donate contacts, people who would be interested in helping out, things like that.
Great. So that's sailahead.org. And
Yes.
you're also on Facebook.
Yeah.
I know that you return messages because I message you. So,
By the way,
that one out. Check. Huh?
Yeah. And by the way, Barbara, and we really appreciate you reaching out to us and the American Snippets and your whole team. You guys do some wonderful, wonderful things as well. So kudos to you.
Thank you.